This is Van Electric Ghost, and we're live on the air with Sondra Rubin. You're a certified Ayurvedic practitioner. Hope I got that right. I'm just learning how to
Oh,
pronounce it correctly. But so you're NAMA board certified practitioner, and I want to welcome you to the Van Electric Ghost podcast.
thank you for having me.
Also, want to let people know, if you can see up there, it says listen on Newsly. We are a featured podcast on Newsly, so I have to shout out to them. And if you use coupon code GHOST, you can check out that channel, podcast channel. It's an audio only channel. We are a featured podcast. This episode will be on Newsly later tonight. You can check that out with coupon code GHOST for 30 days. You can check out how podcasts happen on Newsly. Other than that, we do have a link for you. And I don't know, that will be fully clickable. So I don't know if I need to actually spell it out, but it's pages.sondrarubinwellness.com and then /free-guide-1. You don't have to worry about remembering that. You'll be able to click that through. And again, welcome to the Fam Electric Ghost podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
One of the first things we always ask all guests, or the question we've been asking lately, is like, what motivates you and why do you do what you do?
Yeah, so I love natural medicine because of my own personal healing experience. And I feel like we're all put on this earth to have a purpose. And this is my life purpose, to help people heal. And it brings me joy when I know that they are now taking care of themselves, putting health back into their hands. And it fulfills my inner karma or purpose.
So that's an interesting process. Like, a lot of times people find their calling. And I guess
Right.
in terms, when did you actually start to realize that's what you wanted to do?
You know what? I feel like once you go through life and you notice how it makes you feel, right? When you first experience healing, I feel like when I was first introduced to essential oils, it was basically my first taste of, plant medicine. And when I saw that this could actually help me, it just made sense. Everything clicked, and I just started using them, and I saw the power of this medicine. And after that, I feel like all of the chips aligned, basically,
Mm-hmm.
like it all just made sense to me that this is what I'm supposed to do. This is who I intuitively am. This is who I am as a person. I could look at someone, I could see certain features. I could look at the quality of their skin. I could look at their demeanor. I could tell that there's something going on at a deeper level before they even say it to me, and this is something that I didn't realize I had this ability until I was, specifically trained for it, and realized, like, I'm already doing this. Like, this is something that I do, and I didn't realize this is what I do. And so once I went on that natural healing path for my own health journey, I just knew that this is what I was supposed to be doing in life.
That's interesting. A lot of times people, like, they find something, then they kind of pay it forward by becoming a teacher or becoming a mentor or becoming a practitioner of a particular thing. And I think it's just interesting because, like, sometimes, like, I'm a Buddhist and we have this idea of like the law of attraction, and things just kind of, like, you have a path and it's kind of going to happen and you're going to get drawn to it. And it's going to kind of, like, no matter what you do, you're going to get pulled into it once you kind of get rid of your walls or your barriers that keep you from actually seeing it. And so once you're connected and you have this kind of like a connection capability, like, you can feel the vibration and you know that's where you're supposed to be. And
Yeah.
I think that happens. And people will say, well, that's foo-foo, but a lot of things are holistic, a lot of things are natural,
Right.
a lot of things, the Eastern philosophies tend to be more considerate of these things, or an indigenous kind of concepts, less than maybe so than some Western concepts where maybe like, oh, I don't know if I should really go that way, because a lot of times we're taught like, oh, we should go with like the medicine or the known thing, like, and I'll tell you, I found for myself that I was allergic to a lot of things, and the commercially available lotions and soaps, and I, it started to trigger. And then late, by the time I was 27, I actually had a sarcoma. So my body was
Mm,
kind of telling me that I was like having bad reactions to a lot of products that regular people just use and don't think about. But my skin was reacting, and then suddenly, I had a sarcoma. And then
right.
later, I became more interested in like, well, what is in this? Or maybe I shouldn't take these things. Seem to be like, you get more aware as, oh, these are carcinogens, or these are things I
Right.
don't need. And so I'm going to go toward more holistic, more herbal, more things like that. I was wondering, like, did you find in your path that there was a reason why you wanted to go the natural way?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like it was the same exact thing. You go and you just do the normal until it starts to affect you physically, mentally, emotionally, and then you start to think about the choices that you're making. What are the things that you're putting in your body? What are the things that you're putting on your body? And so I was one of those people that just lived my life, following what, mainstream everything until my health started to deteriorate. And there was no reason that I could figure out until I started researching and saying, oh, wow, you know, Thursday pizza night and Friday Chinese food night and burgers with bacon cheeseburgers and fries on the weekends. It not only is it not like overly healthy diet, but I'm skinny, I'm work out. Like there's why can't I eat like this? But not
Yeah, yeah.
realizing what I was doing was really impacting my overall health. And I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease
Mm,
in my early 30s, and it was just something that I didn't expect. Obviously, no one expects to have an autoimmune disease diagnosis, but at the same time, my youngest daughter, who was 2 years old at the time, she was also diagnosed with an autoimmune disease called alopecia, which is hair loss. And
mhm.
so I just knew that we were doing something fundamentally wrong with our health, and I knew that we had to change what we were doing. And it's intuitively, you start looking at the first thing that you're doing on a daily basis, which is the food that you're
Yeah, food
eating.
nutrition is like a pillar. Like, which a lot of
Right.
times in modern medicine, people don't even if you talk to a doctor, does the doctor actually ask you what you've been eating? You know,
Yeah.
they
No.
just immediately look at what you have and then they give you a medicine, but they never think about unless you go to a holistic doctor that, naturopathic or, they'll start to ask you questions about the more holistic piece of you, like not just one thing. And
Right.
so, yeah, maybe continue. But yeah, I found that was like a core thing when I was diagnosed with cancer, that I had to start thinking about like my mind, my spirit, my body, my mental health, spiritual health, all the things, not just one thing, but like a
Right.
bunch of pillars, which a lot of times people only look at one thing, the body, without looking at the other things.
It's true. It's very true. It's from an Ayurvedic perspective. That's how we look at the body. It's a three-prong approach to managing the body. You're looking at the body, you're looking at the mind, and you're looking at the soul, and you're making sure that it's all aligned. Otherwise, it's a recipe for disease.
Mhm.
And so it's not this, come in and see me and I'll treat you by giving you an herb. And you walk out and you're like, thanks for the herbs. No, that's not how I treat. And it's challenging. People, they have to do the
They don't
work,
want
right?
Yeah, they
What's the
probably
work?
think it's that Western thing. It's like their thing is like, well, it's just gonna replace the pill with a powder or some herb or some plant
Right.
without understanding, like, it's never that, like, easy. A lot of things are more complicated. Not that it has to be hard, but I think you have to be, like you're saying, open to the kinda, like, pillars of yourself, of a human spirit and the human body. Like, there's a lot of inputs and there's a lot of
Yeah.
things that are going on. And it's not just, we always want to think it's just one solution when there could be like multiple aspects to solving whatever issues you're having.
Yeah. It's very true. It's very true. It's not always so straightforward. And every person has their own path as to why they got ill and how they will now start to heal. So, through Ayurvedic medicine, it's a very individualized approach.
Mhm.
So it's not a one pill fits all.
Not a one
It,
size fits all. So you're saying
yeah,
like you have to actually listen and look and assess each individual, and there's like a cookie cutter solution for everybody.
right, right. And what is causing their same skin disease may not be the same thing that's causing someone else's skin disease, even though they have the same exact skin condition. From a Western medicine perspective, they're both diagnosed with eczema, but what's causing it for this person is not going to be the same thing that's causing it for the next person. And so it's really important to get to the root as far as what is causing the imbalance for that person.
Is that hard for the people that come to you to kind of understand that like your approach, or do by the time they come to you, are they already aware what this approach is more like individual and not like some global solution for everybody? It's going to kind of dive into you as a person to kind of find the solution.
Yeah. So when they come to me, it's a pretty long consultation. It's an hour and a half consultation, and we go through their chief complaint, what's going on with them, and get some history as far as how long it's been going on. And we go through their family history, their medical history, current supplements, medications that they're taking, going through their full diet, their digestion, bowel movement, urinary frequency, energy level, sleep quality. I take their pulse from an Ayurvedic perspective and I look at their tongue from an Ayurvedic perspective. And so, with getting that, basically, it's called an eightfold exam, going through all of these lines of questioning, I'm able to determine what's going on in the body. And I explain it to them, from an Ayurvedic perspective. I explain to them, we have these very basic principles of these three biological energies that are in the body called Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. And I explain, what their main, what those biological energies are made up of. So Vata is made up of air and space, and it's responsible for movement in the body. Okay. Pitta is made up of fire and water, and fire and air, and it's responsible for digestion. And Kapha is made up of earth and water, and it's responsible for structure and stability in the body. And so when I explain to them their particular imbalance with one of these three biological energies, in the sense of, maybe the Vata dosha is out of balance. Maybe they're experiencing a lot of stress and anxiety, having trouble sleeping or staying asleep. Maybe they're having racing thoughts, and I explain to them, based on their pulse, based on how their tongue is, how their diet is, it makes sense to them, right? So when I'm explaining to them their particular imbalance, what the foods that they're eating, why it's creating and increasing this imbalance in their body, it starts to click. And that's what Ayurvedic medicine for me did the same thing. It's a kind of medicine that's a very intuitive medicine. And you just naturally start to understand as I'm explaining to you what's going on in the body, how the imbalance is showing up in the body, and why it's showing up because of your diet, your lifestyle. They basically are able to buy into what I'm saying, because
Mhm.
there's no way that I would really know how they're feeling, like, or explain how their thoughts are thinking, like, besides just using these very basic tools that I have
Yeah,
and
makes
and
sense.
explaining it to them. So it's pretty neat being able to use Ayurvedic medicine as a diagnostic tool. So I don't need all of these fancy machines and reports and tests. I mean, they're really helpful, especially for if someone's coming in with a pretty severe condition, and they have all these tools that they're using to monitor their health. But if they come in and they have all these diagnostic testing and nothing is showing up and they're still experiencing symptoms, that's
Yeah.
where I could basically improve their quality of life without, doing anything drastic, right? We can still just really support the body and heal it naturally just by making some adjustments and changes to their diet and lifestyle.
So in terms of like the diet portion and nutrition, how much of what you do actually has like food planning or dieting or nutrition plans? Like if somebody, the root cause is a lot of it, well, percentage of it is like modern fast food or junk food or the kind of corporate food we get today that's not full of nutrients, has a lot of chemicals, has a lot of additives, all the preservatives, all those things. And they've been kind of addicted to it because you can get addicted to the salt and the sugar and the fat and whatever else is in it. But is that a big like effort with people, or are they already kind of there because they're coming to you? They kind of realize that they're probably gonna have to shift that or change that.
Yeah, it depends. I work with people where they're at. There are some times where I'm like, listen, if you follow what I'm telling you to do, at least 60% of the time, so 3 to 4 days out of the week, if you're going to follow this diet recommendation, you're going to see a result. If they're someone who comes to me and they never cook, like they've never cooked, they don't want to cook, there's no way for them to cook, then I have to be pretty creative in figuring out how I can get this person nourished in a way that is
It's gonna
going to
work with your
help,
program.
yeah, help them. So I use sometimes like oatmeal cups, from Bob Mills.
Oh, certain
You
things that are
know,
easier
yeah,
for them to
super
figure out.
simple.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, just add hot water, so instead of, stopping by, McDonald's on the way to work, okay, just get an oatmeal cup, right? And so,
Mhm.
just working with people because otherwise I can't be successful and
Yeah.
neither will they. I just can't say, okay, listen, every single morning you need to make, a bowl of, oatmeal at home and you need to cook it on the stove. And they're like,
They're
it's
no.
not possible. It's not possible
Yeah.
for everyone,
Yeah, some
so
people kind of they're in that kind of like if you go you think about like a fad diet, like how is that gonna are you really gonna do that for the next 20 years? Right? So you're
no.
probably gonna
Right.
fail because it's not sustainable. But if you show something to somebody that they can actually do, you can say like the Bob's cups, like that's not a hard thing. That's a change. Like maybe mentally you're addicted to the fast food and that then maybe that's the leap. Like that because you're addicted to it and you've got to find a way to kind of curb that need for that product and kind of start to change into the whole grains and the other things and find ways maybe you don't have to cook it, but are you going to actually eat it even if it's easy? Like, is that a big thing? Would they get people to like want to eat better?
Yeah. No, it's a challenge. I find that um, depending on the strength of the disease will
Mm,
determine how motivated people are to change, right? So if you're coming to me and it's not so severe, well, what I'm asking you to do isn't,
hard.
they'll do like, yeah, they'll do 60%. But if you're coming to me and you're miserable, right? Like your
Mm,
life is just miserable. You have either maybe you had to stop working or you are like so embarrassed because your skin is so bad and you just don't want to leave the house. Like, just
oh
depends, right?
yeah,
You're
yeah. The
either going to be
severity,
all in,
the severity will
right?
will will say how much are you going to opt in to really want to change? And
Right.
then,
Right.
like, once you change it, are you gonna think it's like overnight and you can go right back to what you're doing before, and it's like a fad diet that's gonna all come back if you're not consistent?
Right. It's true. I'll say, I love to use my husband because I feel like he's my hardest client, right? Because I live with him, so I see everything that he does, right? And he doesn't like to be, healthy per se. Okay, so he thinks that just by living with me, he's healthy. But it's not the case. But I see him this past year was the first year that he ever did a detox with me.
Mm,
And he really tried. Like he tried, and I was just shocked, and I told him, like, after the detox, he had to be vegetarian for a week. And he followed it. And my kids were like, Dad's eating a vegetable. Like, they were shocked. Okay. Like, it was like a big, big change, but he got an incredible result. And so he felt great. Like, he was waking up before this detox with swelling in his hands, in his feet, joints were hurting. He had horrible nights of sleep. Like, he couldn't like fall asleep, stay asleep, waking up restless. He was just, he had indigestion, allergy. I mean, like, he was a complete mess. Okay.
Mhm.
And I'm like, listen, hon, I mean, I really think you need to do this detox. I think you're there. So of course, he's pretty miserable. He's like, okay, let's do it. And afterward, all of those symptoms were relieved for him. And so he was pretty happy with the results. But then, like, slowly it's creeping back into, he's eating ice cream every single night. Before it was like, okay, I'm just going to do it 2 nights a week. And he was great for like 3-4 months. I was just like, wow, this is amazing. Like, we flushed everything down the toilet. Even my husband, he just went down the toilet. Like,
Mhm.
all the attitude, everything gone.
Well, that
But
stuff, yeah.
then, yeah, like
Yeah,
3, 4
as a
months
way to
later,
creep
it's,
back in.
yeah, it's
Well,
creeping back in.
we get
So
hit with so much, telling us to buy it. Like, you're getting hit with subliminal and over the top, like, non-subliminal stuff all over everywhere telling you this is gonna make you happy, this is gonna taste so good, and it has an effect because it's designed to have an effect. So you have to kind of fight against it.
yeah, yeah, it's hard. It's hard. Temptation is hard. But I find, like, I'm sure once the symptoms return for him, you know,
Come back
but
to
this
it.
is the beauty of, like, Ayurvedic medicine, is that we could be pretty much, until he starts to be symptomatic. Probably I'm going to give him another like 2 or 3 months, and then I'll just treat him with herbs. And then once the year is up, he will be ready for another cleanse. So it's like
Gotta
an
cleanse,
annual
yeah.
cleanse.
And that's part of the normal process, like, when you're in this is that you need to be consistent with, like, the pillars, and maybe you can kinda talk about, like, when you get into it, you talk about the detox, you talk about nutrition,
Yeah.
the spiritual and, the mental. Maybe we can kinda go into maybe, like, some of the core aspects of it.
Yeah. So, mainly, everybody lives their life, right? Nobody should be so structured that you can't be and enjoy your life, right? So, um, in the meaning of, you should be able to go out to dinner, you should be able to, have a nice meal with your family. Obviously, if you have very specific allergies, you want to avoid them, right? But if not, you should be able to, eat a nice meal, live your life, um, try to find happiness wherever that is. So, personally, I use meditation as a way to really ground myself. And that's something that I do encourage my clients to do on a daily basis. That has given me the most, I want to say, fulfillment. People who meditate on a daily basis, generally, they do feel more fulfilled in life. And so I try to encourage all my clients to do that. And that is part of Ayurveda as well. Living in a lifestyle that is very, I want to say, just more in tune with how we should be living. So waking up in the morning when the sun it rises, going to bed, not so late, like, 2 o'clock in the morning, like between 10 and 11 o'clock. So living a lifestyle that is pretty regular is from, an Ayurvedic perspective. Okay. Just being mindful of the times that we're eating foods at the right time, in the morning time for breakfast, in the lunch time, in the after midday, like the highest point of the sun in midday. So around 12, 1 o'clock, and eating dinner between, 5 and 7. Okay. So what happens is that if we live our lives a little bit more, I want to say, with awareness, then the chances of an imbalance happening are reduced. It's not completely eliminated. Okay, so paying attention to how much you're working, how much stress you're under, what is your body's response to stress, right? So,
Mhm.
are you a person that like is getting so worked up that you keep thinking about what happened like last week? Is like it's going on month two, then
Replay it over and
yeah,
over.
yeah.
Yeah.
These are all like, ways that we are putting extra stress on the body. And so from an Ayurvedic perspective, we're looking at all of these things. We're looking at how you're living your life, the foods that you're eating, when you're eating them, and the digestive process. We're also looking at how is it going through the digestive system? Are we able to absorb all of these nutrients into the body? Is there a dysfunction in any of the processes? We have 7 tissues in the body that need nourishment: the plasma, the blood, the bone, the fat, the bone marrow, the reproductive tissues. All of these need nourishment. And so, we look at if there's any dysfunction as well in any of the actual digestion in any of these tissues to see, where is there an accumulation of toxins? Where is it, basically, getting caught up for you? So we use all of these tools to be able to determine what's going on in the body, and basically, I want to say we use diet, lifestyle, mental aspect as well. So these are the tools that we use.
I had a question though about like a lot of times in the modern world, the way people eat, like you're talking about like the three kind of major meals, like breakfast, lunch, dinner. And then a lot of times because of the nature of like really stressful jobs that don't go 8 hours, they go like 14 hours, they go 16 hours. People don't, they miss those meals. And then they end up snacking or eating in like not opportune times for your digestive process. And then they might be eating where they're kind of stressed out when they're eating. So if you're in a really high stress situation and when you eat your meals, you're stressed while you're eating rather than having a kind of like, the old kind of, oh, I'm at my breakfast table, I'm at the, my lunch table, I'm at my dinner table. But in the modern world, they're like, oh, you're standing up, you're eating on the go, you're eating on a bus, you're eating you're not really giving yourself that time. It's like it's dinner time and I got an hour, I'm talking to my family, I feel relaxed. Is that part of the problem? Like when people,
Yeah.
the way they eat, is this too stressful, this situation they're in?
Yeah, it is. It's part of the problem. And it's something that I feel like, in our society, we think it's okay. Like we grew up thinking that this is okay. Driving to wherever we're eating, in front of the TV, we're eating, like not realizing that, the body, I mean, how easy is it for you to multitask?
Yeah.
Like, seriously, I'm asking you to do like something at the same exact time. Like, I want you to start, preparing all of your bills, and I want you to cook a meal, and it's going to be at the same exact time.
Same time you're doing
Like,
it, yeah.
it's really like it's
Too
hard.
much.
It's not something is going to get you're going to get, either food on your
Overload.
computer or on the papers, or like you're going to burn something. Like it's going to be
You're gonna mess something
haphazard.
out and
Okay.
cause more stress. Like
Exactly.
you're gonna cause like you're taking a stressful situation and come exponentially making it worse
Yeah. And
because
so,
like you're eating while you're
yeah.
driving, you could have a car accident, fender bender. You think you're being more efficient, but you're distracted. So
Yeah.
like you cause a more stressful situation just because you think you're gonna save time.
Yeah. I mean, like, listen, you can do it, right? Like, it can be done. Okay. So,
Could be
yes, you
done.
could eat and drive. Okay. But what we're not realizing is what's going on behind the scenes. Okay. So, behind the scenes, the body isn't in a state of relaxation. So, it can't do exactly what it's supposed to do. So, it's missing a few steps. Okay.
Mm.
Like you are slightly distracted, and so is the body, and so is all the digestive processes. They're slightly distracted. So instead of getting all of the nutrients, you're going to get, some of the nutrients. And so if you do this day in, day out, day in, day out, that's where we start to see the effects of how you're living your life. Okay. So ideally, you want to be sitting down, relax, eating your breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Are there going to be times where you do not have time to do that? No. You could go. I mean, yes, you're gonna have to go. You're gonna have to just pick up your stuff and go and eat it on the road because you need to get nourished, and you made your breakfast, but you didn't have time to eat it. And it's okay. Make that a one-off. And that's where it's never like Ayurveda is never like, you've got to be like this. It's so strict. It's not like that.
Mm.
It's just do the best you can with the
Best you
tools
can.
that you have and the knowledge that you have, right? Know you should be sitting down and eat. You should be sitting down and eating, and no, you should not be going out and driving and eating, or walking and eating and just being distracted and eating. So spend the time to nourish the body. It is one of the most important things that you could do to maintain your health. So let it be in a relaxed state. Enjoy that food. Allow it to digest properly, and then go on. It could be 5 or 10 minutes. It doesn't have to be a whole 3-course meal. It could be 10 bites and then you got to go. Okay. It doesn't have to be like the whole thing. But that's where I definitely, I agree. There needs to be more mindfulness in how we're eating.
Yeah, I mean, one thing being, I mean, I got diagnosed with type 2 diabetes when I was like 27, and I'm in my 57 now. And being a type 2 diabetic, and sometimes we end up with the low sugars and the high sugars, and now we have these tools that can monitor our sugar so we know where it is, somewhere at wearables. And sometimes as a diabetic, I have to have like smart snacks because my sugar goes low. I just don't want to, like real fruit, real veggies, nuts, things that are actually healthy. And over time, we've figured out, it's like, oh, I should actually be using like these healthy kind of nuts and fruits and things like that, and real things that aren't just a sugar pill. Because they initially go to the doctors, oh, you're low sugar, just take this tab of sugar. Like, well,
Mhm.
maybe I should have some fruit instead. you
Right.
know, like, but we kind of here's your quick fix, just take a sugar, and then people think, oh, just to get a candy bar, and or I'll go get like some thing of soda, or like a really high juice that has tons of sugar. It's like there are better ways to deal with that, but you might go with the quick fix, which is
Yeah.
not
And
necessarily the
sometimes
healthiest thing.
emergency.
Yeah.
Yeah. Emergency. I mean, you need it, right? I mean, you want that, but yeah, you should be planning. Yeah. Like what you're doing, you should be planning to make sure you're using the right foods to manage your condition.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of times we don't, talk nutrition with our health practitioner. That a lot of times until you get to that point where like somebody comes to you where maybe they've tried things and well, it's not working. So now they want to know is like what the plant-based methods or the more, holistic methods, naturopathic methods with less harsh chemicals and, pharmaceuticals and things. Uh, because it's like, why not try what we used to do as human beings before we came up with all this stuff?
I know. I know. This is all very ancient, right? So this is like over 5,000 years old. Even though it sounds like,
New age.
it's archaic, but it's not, right? It's like we've evolved to a place where we've actually created less nutrition for ourselves.
Kind of
It's all
lost.
processed.
We lost what the like indigenous peoples and the ancient peoples kind of knew. Like they knew
Right.
if you ate like fresh food every day, like every day you go to a market and you get your meat that day instead of having the meat frozen or
Yeah.
in the can or not if you, luckily I'm in New Hampshire, we have a lot of farms and we can have a lot of organic food sent to us that's actually not frozen. So
Beautiful.
it's one of the reasons why I live here, given the conditions like post cancer, diabetic. I chose to live in a place where there's a lot of organic food sources that are natural, not coming from the corporate America, coming from like
Nice.
local small farmers. And everybody can live in that kind of situation. So I guess my question is like, if somebody's like living in a place that's like a food desert
Yeah.
and they've got these issues, and they want to live healthy, like, are there recommendations for people like that, like how to do better with in that kind of scenario?
Yeah. I mean, obviously fresh fruits and vegetable are, they're going to be harder to obtain. So I would lean more towards the frozen. Okay. Because, from a hierarchy of quality of food, that's going to be the next best. Right. And that's something that can be stored in your freezer. And then there's a lot of dried, like all of the nuts and seeds, minus the peanuts and the cashews, which can cause a little bit of inflammation in the body. So all the other ones like sunflower seeds, pumpkin seeds, almonds, pecans, walnuts, all those can be stored and stored in glass jars, and they can last a few months. So that could be a really great source of nutrition. And then I love grains. Of course, you always want to make sure if you're struggling with diabetes and things like that, you want to make sure you're picking the right ones. Quinoa is really wonderful, and that could be stored. And then there is oatmeal, and there's barley. These are all really great grains that you could have in your cupboard, and don't necessarily need to leave the house to get them. And then of course, I love beans. Okay,
Mhm.
so I love
Beans are good.
tortall beans. Yeah,
Yeah.
tortall beans is like one of my family's favorite foods.
Mm.
I turn it into vegetarian tacos. And that's something that has such a mild flavor and taste that they don't feel like they're eating anything healthy. It tastes exactly like regular tacos, but it's just our vegetarianite. And
Mm.
those could be stored in the cupboard, and then you could use lentils as well, or there's other beans like mung bean is very popular from an Ayurvedic perspective. It's considered tridoshic. It balances all three doshas. But those are all foods that you could purchase and you could store, and you don't necessarily need, to go to the grocery store all the time because they last for a really long time. So that's what I would lean on if I was,
Yeah,
not in a
protein.
place that I can get, groceries all the time.
Because again, so if you got canned like black beans or chickpeas or any of the beans that you see a lot, if you go to a grocery store, even though are those beans okay? I mean, chickpeas and black beans and
Yeah.
kidney beans,
I mean, I'm not a big, so I generally don't lean towards canned anything. Okay.
can't do
So
either.
canned is like, it's lower on the food,
Lower level.
food hierarchy. Okay. And then the bigger beans generally can be a little bit drying, and whatever, they're preserved in, you have to really read the ingredients,
Oh, that could be a
so
problem. So even if
yeah,
you
I
think
would.
you're doing better because 'cause you're eating a black bean or a kidney bean or a chickpea, if it's coming from the can, you're probably not doing as good as you could be.
Yeah, for sure. And the bigger the beans, the more chances of you're going to have more gas, or can even cause constipation. So I try to, steer my clients towards like the smaller beans.
Or
Okay,
like the
so
lentils, like,
yeah,
yeah.
the lentils, tortall beans, mung beans, and those are generally the beans I like to recommend.
Hmm. What about like the peas? The peas are smaller, but like the dried like peas, are they the same, or
Yeah,
are they a problem, or they have a lot of gas?
yeah, peas are also a little bit drying, and they can be VOTS aggravating, that air and space principle. So I generally don't recommend peas too often. If you're having it once in a while, it's fine. But if it's part of like your daily, like I'm just going to grab peas out of the freezer, the kind of thing, I wouldn't recommend that. I would lean more towards carrots. Those
Mm,
are a better option.
that's interesting because a lot of people don't probably understand like the different types of vegetables and like the impacts and things like you already explained in the last couple minutes, like some of the impacts of some of these these vegetables and these proteins from the beans, and a lot of people would just probably say, "Oh, I'll just go get a bean. I mean, I would just go get beans or chickpeas or pinto beans," and they think that it's good. And maybe it's better than red meat, but it could still be giving you trouble.
Yeah, it can definitely still be giving you trouble. So, we look at the qualities of the food. So that's what's something that's really interesting about Ayurveda. So things like broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, even though they're wonderful, for the body, if people are experiencing a very specific health issue related to excess bloating or
Yeah, it's
excess
not those aren't going to
gas,
help them.
yeah, those are the ones that I'm going to say we need to avoid temporarily, right? Until we get the digestion going and now you're not experiencing that anymore, then you could add it in. But again, it's going to be that once a week, twice a week food, not the every single day. And that's what a lot of us do. They're like, oh, okay, I really like this one vegetable and I'm going to eat it every single day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And I'm like, no, right?
That's not really
Like,
going to do
yeah,
it.
like we need to rotate. We need to
You need to get a
create a little
balance,
bit of
right?
balance.
Yeah,
Yeah.
plus your body, it needs more than just one type of thing. And
Yeah.
I think some people like they get stuck on something they like, and then they,
Right.
it's good for me because it's a vegetable. But it's like if you don't have enough balance,
Hmm.
you're not getting what you need. And it's interesting, like the different types of effects that different vegetables have. And some people say, "Well, I'm just going to go get veggies," and they don't know which ones to start with. Is in you really have talked a lot of information that I don't know if a lot of people realize. Like I think a lot of people would just seem, oh, I can, they go to some place, a vegetarian place, and say, well, that's what I'm going to get, and they don't understand like where they are, right? So if they're having problems with bloating, and they go to a place that has a lot of peas because that's kind of like what they're doing in this restaurant. I say, well, that's vegetarian. That's what I'm going to do, and they don't see the connection. And then they say, well, I can't be a vegetarian because when they tried it, it was their vision of what they think it is. So it
Right.
seems like it's perception, like how you could actually be, uh, you know, for the individual, like you said, it's an individual. You have to assess where the individual is, and then start to figure out what they can have and what they shouldn't have, and it's not one size fits all. And I think that's probably one of the big problems. A lot of people think that I can just do what
Yeah.
everybody does.
Right. Right. For sure. And a lot of people get discouraged when they think, oh, I have to be a vegetarian to be healthy. And that's not true. From an Ayurvedic perspective, there's a lot of people who can't be a vegetarian. I'm one of them, like I have anemia. I need to eat red meat at least
Or
once
you
a
have to
week.
have some, yeah, yeah,
And that's how I manage it, right? I don't experience any symptoms because I know what my body needs in order to manage it properly. So it's the same exact thing for someone who experiences bloating. If they want to be vegetarian, they can, but there are certain foods they're going to want to avoid. So if someone is experiencing heartburn, they're going to want to avoid, those spicy foods, those fried foods, those, nightshades like tomatoes and
mhm,
eggplants, so everyone has their own specific, issues. Like there are certain diseases or conditions that you may be experiencing that someone else doesn't. And for you, you have to avoid those. And just knowing that it's not a one size fits all. And every single person can feel amazing, but they do have to be aware of the foods that they should and shouldn't be eating on a daily basis, for sure.
yeah. It's like they kind of like looking at yourself in the mirror, like your body kind of needs to tell you, and you're good at being able to get that report of like,
Yeah.
okay, was this person? Because you're talking about how you looked at their tongue, you did all these like steps to make an assessment so that you could start to realize, after you gone through your questions, and they're like, oh, okay, well, this person probably shouldn't have peas, or this person shouldn't have this, and each person, like you said, is different. So like when you do that assessment, just because person X was like this assessment doesn't mean person Y is going to be the same assessment. Which I think some
Right.
people just think, well, it's always going to be the same thing. It's the same thing for
Right.
everybody. It's like we're all the same. See, yeah, yeah, how you want to treat people, every human being, you want to treat them with respect, but you're not. When we get to the individuality, like sometimes we have differences that require different things.
Yeah. The fad diets are like the worst, right? So I see people coming in doing like juicing fasts. These are like, I need to be a vegan. Like, I want to be a vegan. And I'm like, well, unless you're going to, seriously compensate and making sure you're not like being a vegan eating like make believe Cheetos all day, like you need to actually really prepare healthy food because you're taking out a lot of different nutrients. So it's really important to educate yourself on the impacts of following these different fad diets and fad, I want to say like routines. They have like the ice bath
Oh,
plunging, and
a lot of
I
them,
feel like
a
I
lot
would
of them
say
are
like
just
every week
like
is something new.
they're all kind of designed for influencers to get like a million views. It's like
Yeah.
a lot of these things are designed to so that that person becomes like a millionaire. That's kind of what the point. But like, is it really for you, or is it for it's for them? So you start to think about it. Like one of the things I wanted to kind of dive in is like, is gut health like fundamental, like the probiotics? Because like if you don't have good gut health, or kind of like, maybe I'm not saying the right term for it, but the idea that you're having a lot of problems with the gastro system, right? Because modern society probably doesn't help that with the food that you're eating before you start to realize what you need to eat. How do people get to a better kind of like gut health, if that's the right way to talk about
Yeah. So from an Ayurvedic perspective, we look at the digestive system as an integral part of maintaining your health. The digestive system and the digestive processes occur not only in the stomach, but occur in each one of those tissues that I mentioned earlier. Not only that, also the mind digests emotions and experiences, right? So if at any point, anywhere along the digestive system and processes in the tissues, in the mind, wherever it is, that if you have any type of weakness,
it?
that's where toxins are going to form. And those are called AMA or metabolic toxins. And we consider that as undigested food. Okay. So undigested food particles enter through the body, through the blood, and they go to those locations where you have the weakest tissues that are now not functioning properly because their specific digestive fire isn't processing properly. Okay. So that's why disease is so specific because for every person, your body makeup will determine if your hereditary genes are now going to be turned on because you have, a family history of cancer. And so because now you are under a lot of stress, the digestive process in the body is weakened and you don't give yourself time to eat properly. You are, dealing with, family trauma or whatever it is. And now you've just basically set yourself up to now have this disease. And for someone else in that same exact situation, wouldn't be diagnosed with that. Maybe they would just have heartburn, right? Because for them, their weakest tissues are in their stomach. So the digestion is a full body, basically, process.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah, that's interesting because it's wider, which makes more sense because you've been talking about the wider pillars. So it's not just like from a Western mindset. Oh, I got bellyache, or I've got problems in my gut. I need probiotics. I need bran. I need. They're only thinking about that way. They're not thinking about like the mental stress situation is affecting it too, and they're not changing that or resolving maybe that is a big issue, and they're only thinking it's, oh, I need probiotics, and they don't think about the other part.
Yeah. No, probiotics help when we're dealing with like gut issues. But there are so many other different processes in the body that need the proper digestive, uh, you know, fire to occur, and that's where we'll start to see skin issues.
Mm,
Where we'll see toxins accumulating in the skin because the digestive fire that's going on in the body is just not strong enough to basically, reduce the amount of toxins that are being released in the blood, in the muscles, and intracellular fluids in the body. And then what we'll start to see is skin disease forming.
So a lot of times, like you're saying, with a lot, you're proposing with your these types of remedies is you don't need the creams, you don't need the medicines. That if you go through the practices you're going through, you can actually resolve it. You heal your skin naturally through
For
these.
sure.
So I
Yeah.
think a lot of people are just thinking, well, I got to get this cream, or I got to get this pill, I got to get this shot. That's what's going to solve my issue. And you see it every day, every time you watch TV. There's some magic pill that's supposed to
Yeah.
solve.
Yeah. So it's hard for me because it's something that, yes, if we have a severe condition and we have an emergency situation, use the pill, use the creams, use the medications, but there needs to be an exit plan. And there isn't an exit plan for people. And they keep on taking the shot, the pill, the cream until it stops working. So they miss that window of, let me start healing from the inside out. Let's deal with this real situation that's going on in the body. And let's stop eating the foods that are aggravating the situation. That whole process is just not happening. And then people come to a point where they're just taking more and more and more and more medications. And then they start to see the effects that these medications have on the organs, because long-term use is really where we start to see really horrible diseases coming into play. And they don't relate it because maybe they're just two completely different diseases, but it's really this one condition that started where we never healed it. We never healed the actual root cause of the issue, and it just keeps on progressively getting worse. And then we start to see other conditions and more medication being administered. But yeah, it needs to be healed from within for skin conditions. It needs to, we need to heal the digestive system. We need to heal the blood. We need to clean the blood, and we need to clean out the entire body, because by the time you have a skin condition, all three of those doshas are out of balance: vata, pitta, and kapha. They're completely out of balance. And 4 out of the 7 tissues in the body are also out of balance. And so we have a pretty severe condition going on in the body. And so even though you may be using a cream, and even though you may be using an internal, medication or steroid or taking shots, it hasn't stopped the progression of what's going on. And so it's really important to clean out the body and clean out those toxins so that they could finally get relief. They could finally start to manage the condition, and maybe possibly start reducing the medication, and maybe starting to reduce the topicals. And that to me sounds like medicine. That to me sounds like a game plan.
Yeah, it seems like more sustainable, because
Right.
like a lot of times medicines are somewhat poisonous. They might, eventually you got to detox from the medicine too, because you're putting these elements or these chemicals into your body, substances in your body, and then like you said, you might keep on using more, and it's not solving it, and so then you're overdoing it, and then you're getting out of balance again. And so then you're going to need a detox. It's not really working. But like you said, a lot of things are root cause analysis, and I work in software design, and everything we do in business software design is like, what is the root cause of what we're trying to solve? And if we don't actually find the root cause, then we end up not solving the problem. And I think that's even though it sounds logical, it works with everything. Like if there is a base core problem and you actually don't have the solution, and you think it's like a feigned solution, you're not really solving it, you're just touching it, or putting a cover on it, you're not really addressing it, then it's still there. If it's still there, it's still present, it's gonna end up kind of biting you.
Yeah. And I love that. I love that. The fact that, you're in software engineering and you get it, right? It's just like, why can't our medical system get that? Like it's just really makes me a little frustrated.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like sometimes they don't see the whole holistic picture. It seems like modern medicine is so divorced from what we've been talking about all day, like the heart, the mind, the spirit, the body. They're like, oh, that's not science. So then they
Yeah.
can't buy into it because they're always looking for some kind of fact. Going to look at a chart, look at a blood test, look at an X-ray, look at a CAT scan, look at an MRI, look at this, right? Without, well, maybe you can't measure the spirit and the soul, and some of the things you're talking about aren't showing up, without using the medicine to see a result. They're not, and then I guess there are science that people that have started to analyze like what you do and say, is it working or is it not working? And when you start to, give the facts, well, that convinced them when they get the report, just, oh, it does work. But they gotta see
Yeah.
the report. If they don't see the
Yeah.
report, then they won't believe it.
Yeah. No, I love it. I love it when people come to me. I had an elderly couple come to me and they had just went to the doctor. They got all their blood work. And then they were with me for about 3 months and they were following everything I said to do and taking their herbs. And then they had their follow up with their doctor and took the blood work again. And the doctor was like, just continue whatever you're doing, because all their inflammatory markers were down, their cholesterol was down, like everything. And they were like, this is amazing. This is great. And so, yeah, I mean, I feel like it's, sometimes the diagnostic testing is helpful. But, sometimes, just seeing how you feel, right? Seeing how much you feel better is enough of a test to know that what we're doing is working.
Yeah, puts you
And
where you need to be. Like if
yeah,
if you feel better, if you're not, you know, having the same result, then proof is proof is in the pudding. And like you do it and then you see, it's like there's nothing lost by not, I think you should check out like, different alternative medicine, what they guess they call it. But a lot of times it seems like our whole generation of people are like, they're still willing to entertain or check out what you're talking about because they've been, using what they've been using the Western concepts and it's like, well, it's not working.
right,
It's not helping me. So like, where am I got to shift a little bit.
right. It's usually how people find alternative medicine. They'll go the Western medicine route first, and then they'll say, oh, wait, this isn't working, now let me try this. It would be great if we had a more integrative approach where we really embrace the fact that we have these tools. We have natural medicine, we have naturopaths, we have acupuncturists, we have Ayurveda, we have all of these different natural medicines. We should use those first, and if it's really not helping, then go into the chemical pharmacy Western medicine approach, because we know those are the heavy hitters. We know that we'll start to see results, but then really also face the chance that there's going to be a consequence of the
Yeah.
long-term use of it, right?
Yeah, we always see all the side effects listed for every medicine they put on TV.
Yeah,
They would say, "Oh, it's great," and everybody's dancing around happy, and then they list like 100 things that could go wrong.
I
I'm
know.
like, "Did you see all the things that go wrong?" It's like I know they're dancing, I know they're smiling, I know they're, but like, what did they just say are
I know.
the consequences of potentially taking this pill? Like, I guess you didn't see that. You didn't pay attention to that part.
I know. I know. And it's true, because those are the side effects that generally happen after like years. Right? It's not like, oh, you took it for like a month or two and I'm fine, I don't have any of these side effects. It's just like the long-term effects. That's
Yeah, well,
basically
you
what
gotta think about the
happens.
long term because eventually it catches up with you. But
Yeah.
one of the things we like to ask people at the end of the episode is like, if there are like 3 lessons learned from doing what you do that you would like to convey to the audience, or the particular important, 3 important takeaways.
Yeah. So I would say if you're ever trying anything new, to go slowly, right? Like, don't expect to make changes in your diet and lifestyle overnight. So also just being kind to yourself. If you, are making changes, you definitely want to do it, mindfully and kindly to yourself. Like, don't just like be harsh if you can't get it right and perfect. And then the other one would be, takeaway would be that I would say try to look outside the box. So if you are experiencing any kind of health issue, if you go and you seek care from either, some naturally minded person, get multiple opinions, because, just depending on the experience level, or depending on if that particular, type of medicine is right for you or not, there are so many different options, right? So this might not be for everyone. But there may be another kind of natural medicine approach that you could take that you feel more in line with, and give it a chance. Like, give it 3 or 6 months to help you if you have a condition. Don't just try to go for like the quick fix. I went for it and just like, one time and it just didn't help. That's really not an effective way to manage your health, because as you heal, the body shifts and changes. And so there may be an adjustment that needs to happen.
Yeah.
And working with an experienced person can really get you there, but may take a little bit of time.
Yeah, time is always the factor, and we're so used to like the quick fix that is something to
Yeah.
keep in mind. And it's like it's not always an overnight thing. But I want to
Right.
thank you for being a guest on the Family Electric Ghost podcast. I think you had a lot of great points that I think are going to help a lot of people. I do encourage everybody to click the link that we have below so that they can contact you. That will be clickable on every platform that we're on. We were just on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch, and that will be clickable there, and everywhere else that we're going to be. We're on all the major podcast platforms like Apple and Spotify, iHeartRadio. So those will be available by tomorrow. Again, thank
Thank
you for
you
being a
so much
guest
for
on the
having
Family
me.
Electric Ghost
Thank
podcast.
you. Thank you
Have a
so
good
much.
night.
Good night.
Good night.